Let's talk about Scarred by Emily McIntire. Hey guys, I'm Marlene and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about the dark romance Scarred by Emily McIntire. Now this is part of the Never After series of books, which are actually all standalone villain romances. So the first one was Hooked, which is about Captain Hook. Second one is Scarred, which is about Scar from The Lion King. And then there's Twisted, which is a Wizard of Oz kind of retelling. Now, I haven't read any of the other books in the series, but I really wanted to read Scarred because Lion King is literally still my favorite movie of all time. So, let me read you the blurb of Scarred by Emily McIntire. Unfortunately, I don't have a nice paperback copy to show you, or hardback copy, because I read it on my Kindle, but you can see the beautiful cover on the thumbnail to this video. She doesn't belong to him, she belongs to the crown. Prince Tristan Farsa was never destined for the throne. That was always his brother Michael. The same brother responsible for Tristan's tormented childhood and the scar that mars his face. When their father dies, Michael is set to assume the throne, and Tristan is set to steal it. The leader of a secret rebellion, Tristan will stop at nothing to end his brother's reign. But when Michael's new betrothed, Lady Sarah arrives, Tristan finds himself in the middle of a new kind of war. The kind that begs the question of what's more important, the crown or the woman about to wear it. Sarah, I don't know if it's Sarah, I think it's actually Sarah. Sarah has one plan, marry the king and eradicate the Farsa line, even at the risk of her own peril. But she never expects the scarred prince. He's dangerous, forbidden, and one of the men she's been sent to kill. But the line between hatred and passion has never seemed so thin, and as secrets come to light, Sarah grows unsure of whom she can trust, torn between vengeance and the villain she was never supposed to love. Scarred is a dark, royal romance and a complete standalone within the Never After series, a series of fractured fairy tales inspired by our favorite villains. It is not a retelling or fantasy. It contains subject matter which may be triggering for some. Reader discretion is advised. And yes, reader discretion is definitely advised with this book. So as per usual with my book reviews, I'll be rating the book based on plot, romance, characters, pacing, writing style, and overall enjoyment, and then put those together and come to an average, and that will be my rating for the book. So let's start with plot. Now this technically isn't necessarily plot, it's more world building, but one of my favorite things about this book was how much of The Lion King it incorporated in such subtle references. So I didn't incorporate it really in a way that had to do with the story of The Lion King, but in character references and names and things like that, and even some lines that are reminiscent of lines in The Lion King. So I'm sure you would have noticed that the royal family's surname is Farsa, like Mufasa. And then we have Scar, who's Tristan, and Scar's actual name is Taka, and then obviously he became Scar when he got the scar, so that's kind of a throwback to that. And then Michael is Mufasa, Sarah is Sarabi. There are also two characters called Timothy and Paul, which are definitely Timon and Pumbaa. We have Uncle Raph, who's Rafiki, Xander, who's Zazu, and then there was also a character named Ophelia, which I love because there's long been this thing that Lion King was based on Hamlet. It's not, I don't think it really is. I think the creators have said it's not. But, you know, some people just call it like Hamlet with lions. I'd argue Hamlet is the Lion King with people. But anyway, so Ophelia from Hamlet, and that reference in there was also really great. So one of my favorite aspects. And I literally grin like an idiot every time a character referenced a line from the movie. So it was really fun for me. This book had a decent plot, but not a great plot. So the reveal of the plot twist to Sarah I should stop saying Sarah, is just resolved too easily. That kind of conflict in that moment of her realizing this huge secret, which I won't tell you because this is a spoiler-free review, but I just feel like that conversation doesn't have enough conflict, enough tension. It's like over very quickly. The plot twists in general were really like brushed over. Like there wasn't enough of a consequence or an impact in that moment of realizing this huge twist. It was almost like the characters just like accepted it very easily. The climax of the book is also kind of split into two different battles. Like one that happens and then time goes by and then there's another one that happens, which I didn't like. I feel like I was kind of lost in that state in between. I was like, is this over now? What's happening? Kind of thing. I didn't really know where I was. There's also a very sweet epilogue. I'm not a huge fan of epilogues, but if you like them, you'll like this one. So for the plot, I'm giving 3.8 stars out of 5. Then romance. The star of this book. It is a dark romance after all. That's what it's marketed as, and that's what it delivers. It's dark, passionate, messed up, intense, it's twisted, sometimes sick, but it's exactly as advertised. You get what you think you're going to get going into it, and you even get a little bit more. I really, really enjoy the dynamic, the chemistry between Sarah and Tristan. I think Emily really leaned into the dark romance thing, the villain romance thing, and I really love that. So she didn't shy away from the dark aspects of this relationship, but this couple being together is still believable. Then the sex scenes were not the best I've read. They skewed, I think, kind of too far into the vulgar direction, but it was still good. I mean, there was a lot of intensity. It was very steamy. So it's not that it was bad, it's just I've read better. But yeah, this is truly a villain romance. There's not really this sense of like the villain changing. It's two people who are both kind of twisted and messed up, who find each other and fall for each other as they are, which I really, really like. So that's 4.6 out of 5 for romance. Then there's characters. Like I said, I could link most of the characters to Lion King characters, which I loved, and their names were like very closely linked to their movie counterparts. So in terms of the main character, Sarah, well, there are two main characters, but one of them, Sarah, I think she's a good character. She's sometimes a bit one-dimensional, but she's determined and interesting enough for it not to be super boring and a complete flop. So it's not like, this is a protagonist I'm going to be talking about forever. But it wasn't bad in the sense that it took you out of the story or ruined the story. Then there's Tristan. My villainous boy. I loved this interpretation of Scar. I mean, we all love Scar. He has really good motivation in this book. He's definitely ruthless, twisted, a little cruel, but he also has like kind of enough redeeming qualities for you to root for him, even against your best judgment sometimes. He's morally grey at its best. I'd say it's like very, very dark grey. And I find it frustrating when people market books as, you know, the character being morally grey, and then it's literally just like they're not actually morally grey at all. That's just how they're perceived. And then that kind of goes away within the like first quarter of the book, or, you know, half of the book. Here, the character really is morally grey. Like, you don't agree with most of what he does, but you still kind of like him. So, listen, I don't want to date this man in real life. Ever. I like, stay away. But as a book character, he's phenomenal. Then Michael. Michael's motivation is given really briefly, and it's not even really enough, I think. I feel like they made Michael mean for the sake of being mean, just because there needed to be like an antagonist in the book. I think a lot of people might be upset about this interpretation of Mufasa. I tried to kind of dissociate it from the movie character, but yeah, I just felt that Michael was kind of Iago from Othello-like, in his sense of just like, he is mean. and because he's mean. Then there's Simon. So Simon is, I guess this is a spoiler, but it's a very minor spoiler. Simon is Michael's illegitimate child. And Michael doesn't have anything to do with him, but Tristan and Sarah do. So I think he's 11 or something in the book. He's written in, I think, almost too juvenile a way to be 11 years old. He's very cute, very, very brave, and that's amazing. And I loved his relationship with Tristan and later with Sarah. So obviously Simon is supposed to be Simba in this scenario, so it was quite a big deal to have him in the story. And I think the main thing that I liked is how Simon showed who Tristan really is, like what's deep in his heart, and that there are redeeming qualities and he's not just evil and cruel and bad. I have to take my Lion King bias out of the equation when I'm rating these characters, so I'm going to say it's a 3.5 out of 5. Then pacing. This book had nice, consistent pacing. Like, it remained interesting throughout, there was no sagging in the middle. It moved from plot twists way too quickly, and also it moved on from any relationship conflict very quickly. It would just be this intense revelation or intense argument and then over, and no one references it again, and it's not really, doesn't have that much of an emotional impact. But other than this, the pacing was spot on, so I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. Writing style. So I love the way that she was inspired by some movie lines. There were quite amazing lines thrown in here and there, like things you want to quote and people won't believe that you're quoting it from like a dark romance book. The writing is unobtrusive and it doesn't make itself obviously known as writing, which is the point. So I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. Then enjoyment. Now this isn't based on anything about literary quality or any specific idea of what a story is supposed to be. This is literally just how much did I enjoy it. And I enjoyed this book a lot. It actually got me out of a reading slump. I finished it in 2 days. So my Lion King and my dark romance heart was very, very happy. So I'm going to give it a 4.4 out of 5. So that means that in total, I rate this book 4.1 out of 5 stars. I'd really recommend it if you are a fan of dark romance, of villain romances, if you're a fan of Lion King and seeing a kind of darker, very interesting take on that. I would advise you not to go into this book if you are not a fan of very dark romance and very dark characters, because you will just think, what the fuck? So yeah, that's my review of Scarred by Emily McIntire. Like I said, really enjoyed this book and would recommend for fans of the genre. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Remember to hit that little subscribe button, ring that little bell so you don't miss any videos. I post writing advice videos on Wednesdays and book review videos like this one on some Fridays. As always, you can find me on my website, Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, TikTok, and BookBub. All the links are listed below, and then I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!